This is day 2 of the November 90 7-day retreat at Springwater. Maybe we'll do what we have done in recent retreats and read all the questions that I have accumulated here. People have told me that this is very helpful to them, to feel what is going on in other people's minds, as well as in one's own. No one has handed me a written question, so these questions have been written down by me later on, and some of them I have forgotten. Doesn't mean that this bunch here are the important ones. Times I just jotted a word down, so I will recreate the question in my mind now. Many questions about judgment. Not just questions, but comments that I cannot look at anything or hear anything without a judgment coming up. And then the judgment of judging. And ad infinitum, right? Judging that I have judged my judgment. Is there an end to that? I've heard many of your talks, have looked at the tape list, but you don't seem to talk much about death or reincarnation. I am wondering if the me is just thoughts and memories, ideas, wishes, fears, and so forth. What is it that reincarnates, if at all? I don't really know why I'm here. Is it just a habit to come to retreat? Could you talk sometime about how does one make decisions? I feel a great resistance to doing what I am supposed to do here. Or sitting at home, I'd rather watch TV or the news or read books, including Buddhist texts and eat ice cream, rather than just sit and question. Why is that? I suffered a great loss recently. And in sitting down here at this retreat, I feel that my focus in meditation is lost over this loss. What is creativity? Would I introduce creativity into my life by taking a course in painting? I feel that the stupid office work I'm doing, where you have to do things which are utterly unnecessary, is not creative. When I ask a question, I want an answer. Else, why ask a question? Do you believe in guides? There's something non-verbal going on within me, which words cannot possibly touch. Why do you, Toni, use so many words, trying to mediate something that cannot be touched by words? Why do we listen to you if we need to see for ourselves? In sitting last night, there arose a fear of really not knowing what I'm doing, the fear of what is next. There's nothing here to support a regular practice, no energy created by a traditional structure which can carry us. I'm sitting in a haze, in turmoil, the chaos of never-ceasing thoughts, and a numbness of not being in touch with anything. Also, I feel a deep loneliness as I think about all this. I've been sitting off and on for 20 years, but I still find something of an obstacle, a resistance to really looking, to doing what I am supposed to do. Where do we start? Can we start with what still reverberates in the memory, what I'm supposed to do? Maybe if that is clearly understood, that there is nothing we're supposed to do, some of this obstacle resistance may wither away. Because inevitably, the moment the thought comes up, you're supposed to do this rather than that, there's resistance. On the one hand, wanting to do that, as some people have described, and the immediate conflict, because I don't want to do what I'm supposed to do. And can one look at that, discover this conflict directly, verbally as well as non-verbally? It is verbal in that there are voices going on inside. Do that, you're supposed to do that, I don't want to do that. Why should I do that? I should do that. I'm just improvising, but these voices can be heard by all of us inside this, whatever this space is, where pictures and ideas and inner voices are perceived. And it's also non-verbal, because with every inner command, do that, get going, there comes a physical tension, not only the tension of do that, but also the tension of I don't want to do that. Maybe the voices one didn't hear, but the inner tension is there. And it may be old, dating back to when we were bossed around as little children. I'm amazed the more I'm watching openly, unprejudiced, unbiasedly what goes on, the relationship between adults and little children, the incessant bossing, the incessant telling, don't do that, do this. And doesn't have to be happening in a mean way. Benevolently, trying to guide this little new child. Being the guide. We love to be guides, because we were once that little helpless child who was constantly told what to do. And now it's our time to do the same thing. This doesn't all go on consciously, verbally in the mind, but it is programmed this way. Not all parents do it, but not all the time, but sooner or later it happens. Don't and do. And the don't happens when everything in the little child is mobilized to do, then don't do. So that's where the conflict has started. Conflicting programs. Rewards for doing what the adults say to do, punishment for not doing. And it doesn't have to be severe punishment, it can just be a furrowed brow, the face of the mother or father. And the enjoyment of doing it anyways when they are not looking. And that enjoyment of doing that when they're not looking, playing with a ball in the living room after having been told and punished for doing, not to do it and punished for doing it, and then doing it anyways when they're not there. That joy of doing something that one is not supposed to do doesn't exhaust itself. It doesn't exhaust the case. The case remains there in the mind, wherever these memories are located, as unfinished business to be repeated ad infinitum, including telling one's children not to do that, not to play with a ball when one has children of one's own. And yet this secret joy at not doing what one is supposed to do. I think I've gone sufficiently into this right now for us to see that this is operating. And here, I'm not trying to mediate something. I'm looking at something that is happening in ourselves, in our relationship, and all around us. Why do I talk about it? Because if we don't see what we're doing and what has happened to us, these things repeat themselves over and over. Unconsciously, subconsciously, with partial flickering of attention, but not so completely aware that one wonders whether it has to continue. And with that wondering, maybe it doesn't continue. What do the words have to do with seeing that for oneself? Because I can't see for anyone else. I don't quite know what words have to do with that. We talked yesterday about images, the power of image to see somebody in terms of what I know about him from yesterday or her. And someone mentioned in a meeting, during the work period, looking up and seeing someone who wasn't doing anything, and immediately the thought, oh, this person is not doing their work. And feelings that go with this judgment. It was judgmental. And then the next time he saw this person, this was already there. He noticed that. Was it because it had been mentioned? He says so. Would it have been noticed if it hadn't been talked about? Maybe not. I will never say that there's a direct cause and effect relationship between seeing something directly and something else that preceded it. Who knows? And yet something goes on when we listen to what is being said and look at the same time. Not just think she's trying to mediate something. And of course we don't want to have something mediated. I'm not a medium. I got my eyes closed. Somebody said, "Are you channeling?" Whatever that means. Get out of the habit of not looking, but it's easier for me to talk when I don't look. But it's also partly a habit. But I'm not channeling. I'm just looking and trying to put into words, or not trying. The words come, expressing what is being seen very clearly. And in doing this, it can happen any place else. It doesn't just happen here. The first time I ever read and heard someone, it happened to have been Krishnamurti, maybe not just happened, put in clear English language what was observed to be so, not obscure, not parabolas or analogies and so forth, but clear language, pointing out what it goes on in thought and image. I saw things I had never looked at before. Did he mediate something, or was there just an opening to look and see things that had been considered too sacred, or goodness knows what to look at, too cherished, and we cherish the image of ourselves. And that's why we don't want to look at how we function from moment to moment. The looking directly is nonverbal. What thought programs, deeply and superficially deposited in the mind, have produced in this body recently and long ago, that's also nonverbal. May have been deposited before we even understood thoughts and words. And yet feelings of resistance and wanting, just to take out something simple, have been established as programs long ago and can be elicited at any time by something that reminds this repetitive memorizing organism of what happened in the past. The question is what is being triggered seen, apprehended? It comes into the light of awareness, or does it just run darkly, dimly, hazily? Something new happens when there is a direct seeing. The direct seeing is the new thing, which is anything but automaticness and habitualness. It's something different, and it has nothing to do with judgment. Just like the sun coming through the clouds and illuminating everything in a golden light, whether it's trees or leaves or grass or discarded trash, beer cans, it all shines up. So we've gotten strayed away from this thing of what am I supposed to do here? Not supposed to anything, but can one look? Because one is interested, because things are here. We wouldn't walk across a 8-lane highway or even the 2-lane highway with a paper bag over our heads. We wouldn't do it. Not because we're supposed to take it off, but we'd get hit. We may get hit. Maybe the highway is empty, then we can put the bag on. How can we relieve ourselves individually and collectively of the idea that we're supposed to do something here? It doesn't just happen by my saying, no, we're not supposed to do anything here. Sometimes people say, yeah, that has been a big help. You're allowing things to happen or giving permission. But I'm not even giving permission. Things are there to be seen. If they're not looked at, they're not seen. If they're looked at, they're seen. The truth of something is seen. The actual truth, if we're looking without judgment, without wanting to do something about it or against it or for it. And that is very difficult, a very difficult mode to come up in this computer. It's not even a computer mode. It's a way of being which is free to look and feel and touch and hear what's there without immediate interpretation, without the past immediately burying this insight, which usually happens. But the burying, the can also be perceived. And coming to and realizing all of it is just putting into words and interpreting, labeling what has happened and wanting to preserve it. We're not saying this is right or wrong. We're not judging it. We're looking at what happens. And I'm not quoting from textbooks that I have pored over and remembered. The textbook is myself, my relationship with people, and what I observe in other people, what people tell me, what we look at and share and probe into together. This is it's a live textbook. So if one feels this resistance to sitting down, first of all, one doesn't have to sit down. One can take a walk, lie in bed. I think hot tub is not encouraged because of the water noise during sitting, so that may have to be postponed. Or one may wonder, what is this obstacle, this resistance? Not judge it, not condemn it, not want to be rid of it, but wondering about it as one may wonder about anything that is happening in this moment-to-moment living, which we don't perceive, don't apprehend, don't see, because we're constantly thinking either about other things or about the things that are happening. No time for just looking, listening, touching, smelling. And the time is there. Here in a retreat, it's a marvelous time for meeting old friends and foes inside, in a setting which is totally protective of our survival, except we may be hurt by a bow, by a hunter, but we have these orange vests. We don't have to shop, we don't have to think, what are we going to cook for our next meal? Food is abundantly there and it tastes good. There's a resting place. There are earplugs if the neighbor snores. We don't have to do any work except an hour's worth, maybe if one is on staff, a few hours worth. Other than that, there is time and space and maybe contact with some energy to look at what we constantly pass over, take for granted, fail to notice, and maybe somebody talking about it for usually less than 1 hour in 24 hours. Maybe that triggers or elicits some seeing oneself. Of what has never been noticed before, or what maybe has been noticed and forgotten, not looked at again. And the word looking has to be used with caution. It's not visual. Listening is not just auditory. Smelling is not just with the nose. touching not just with the skin, it is all of these senses together, perceiving as one whole perception. Undivided by interpretation. Interpretation may come so quick, judgment may come so fast. Labels are there as though they are inseparably linked with perception. So that too can be perceived. Maybe after the fact, after it has happened, boom, there was a judgment, a label, an interpretation. It still reverberates in the memory. And memory itself, what memory presents, a scene in which we became so angry or so fearful, that memory itself can be looked at. Either it runs sort of automatically, churning with no awareness, triggering all the emotions, or one can look at something that happened, which is constantly gnawing as unfinished business in the mind, and say, all right, let me just look at it now. Take some time with it. What happened? And this time the remembered scene permeated with attention. What he said, what I said, and the feelings that come up. Memory can evoke almost the same feelings as the actual happening. That's why we give such credence to memory, such validity. One person asked, can one make a compulsion out of this being here this moment and looking? Of course, we make compulsions out of everything. As again, I'm supposed to do this, and with this I'm supposed to do this looking comes the resistance. Can that be lit up inwardly? And by lit up, I don't mean all of a sudden expecting a shower of floodlights. It's more like an inner transparency of what is going on. Not having explanation. So often people say, I don't know what's going on with me. I don't either, but it's happening. And one can see it and feel it. All the conflicts, the turmoil. The person saying, the haze I'm sitting in, unguided by a normal practice, unsupported by structural, traditional energies, I feel I'm in a haze. There's chaos, numbness, and no energy. I would be careful with any statement I make about myself, about my condition and the conditions and situation around me, because it is observable that the statement that we make about ourselves and our condition and the situation around us, that statement itself has an impact on how we feel. We try to say something about our feelings and there's more impact from saying what we say about our feelings. Do you follow that? And maybe one follows it verbally, but you need to see it directly to discover this. And then, if one has discovered it often enough, the moment the mind starts making statements about me and him, and the situation here and what I'm in for, one goes easy with these statements. Because one realizes the impact. We don't have to state to ourselves what we are, what he is, what the situation is. Or if we do state it, fine-tune into the effects of that. And because there are effects in saying, there's no energy here, let's just take that as an example, that statement can drain energy in ourselves. Or it may be preventive. There's already a conclusion. Conclusion means closed up. It is preventive of openly listening, tuning in to the energy of no method, no system, no nothing. The energy that moves wind, moves trees and grasses. From hot to cold, from light to dark, from dark to light. What energy is it that keeps this heart beating? Not just this heart, but billions of hearts of humankind are beating. Billions of breaths are being taken every minute, every instant. What supports that energy? Where does it come from? We don't know. It doesn't come from a traditional system. It's just operating all the time. While we were enjoying the shade of the trees in the summer, and the green was marvelous this summer, so much rain and also warmth and sunshine. Big glossy green leaves almost all summer long. And then the color and the leaves dropping off. There are these buds for next year. They don't know they're for next year. They're just there. What brought that about? We don't know. In our verbally drained state of talking to ourselves about ourselves, our sad situation, we weren't in touch with that energy which operates all the time. So, becoming aware of the haziness, confusion, turmoil, chaos within. Can one be with that, sit with that, without knowing how to tackle it? It may not need to be tackled at all. It's there if it's there. What is it? To listen, feel, touch, smell it. That's what's there right now. The numbness, what does it feel like? You could say, well, wait a minute, you can't feel numbness. But you're saying that you feel numb. So what is it you're feeling or not feeling? But directly, not verbally. Quietly. It takes a quiet interest and attention, doesn't it? Fine-tuning to what's there without judgment. And if the judgment has already come up, one can notice it and still keep listening, even though one has said something deflating about one's condition. So one looks at this additional deflation too. It's just one more wave. And that's not all that's happening. There's the sound of bodies moving. There's a dog barking. Maybe this faint heartbeat suddenly comes into awareness. A person recently told me, I was wondering for the longest time who was drumming. Then I realized it was my heart. The breath is there. It's not to be practiced. We don't need to practice our breathing. It's there. What is it like if we don't make a compulsion out of watching it, allowing it to come and go into awareness as it will? Belly moving. Put one's hands on one's belly and feel something. It's moving with the breathing. Doesn't mean I'm supposed to do that now, but one can do it. Be in touch with different parts of the body by where the hands are. Hands are on the thighs, there's touch with that. There's something going on there in the hands. Where do the hands end and the thighs start? I don't know. Doesn't matter. And of course, all the while, thoughts coming up, thinking about something entirely different, being off someplace. It happens. And when one comes to, there's a moment of attention again. Then can one be simple about the whole thing? Not these do's and don'ts. They come up so automatically, then to see that, feel it. Not take it so seriously, so for true. Because the mind does spin off. One person said, why this avalanche of thoughts all the time? Why is it that the brain is always producing more thoughts? If you ask that question, then you'll watch. Because you've become interested in something. Maybe as you watch a thought, then it isn't palpable anymore, it's gone. And in watching thoughts and wondering where they all come from and why they're constantly there, maybe they slow down in that process. Maybe suddenly there isn't much of anything in the mind. And usually people tell me, I get scared, there's nothing in the mind. First one was upset over the fullness, now one is upset over the emptiness. But that's thought, saying, oh my God, there's nothing. That has an impact, doesn't it? Because nothing means sort of all kinds of things. Vacuum, I'm not there. I may have to leave house and home. Not have ice cream anymore. Speaking of that ice cream and needing to watch television, that's what we're talking about. It came up in a group yesterday. Said the group worked very well. At least we felt so. I think we felt so. I hope I'm not speaking wrongly. Somebody's saying, why do I sit down and watch and eat ice cream rather than just sitting? And there's this obstacle to sitting. But if one wants to watch news and eat ice cream, can one give a little bit of attention to that? It doesn't have to happen mechanically. There can be awareness in watching a program, in the ice-cold spoon in the mouth, and this cold stuff, touching the teeth. Maybe at first it hurts. Later on the teeth get numbed to that. And it tastes good, saliva collects, maybe even in talking about it. Why can't one watch it? Why can't one watch the moment the desire arises to turn on the program or get ice cream? Just watch it, not as a do or don't whip there, controlling everything or trying to suppress or condemn, but out of interest. What is this moment of maybe blondness, which we don't want to look at? We can still get the ice cream, but we can also look at that. It may not even be gone while the ice cream is being consumed. If some attention is given, there may still be this feeling of boredom or shallowness, meaninglessness of life, which is supported by words too, by conclusions. all there, open to be entered into with a mind that is interested in looking. And not condemning anything for being worthless or not important enough to pay attention to. These judgments again happen quicker than thinking. They come out of a past program, good or bad. This shouldn't be looked at. Watching news or licking ice cream. Or, for that matter, pulling out a cigarette. Why not watch that once from beginning to end, when the first urge arises? Can only be done if there's no condemnation of it. No justification or nothing, just interest. You see, the moment one drops the labels haze, turmoil, confusion, chaos, and that just sits there. Because it's not me with that. I am all of that. It's just sitting there listening, looking. It's not the same anymore. And it can't be put into words what it is. We want to know, well, what is it then? What happens? But you have to find out for yourself. That's why we keep asking, what is everything? What am I? When words fail to capture it. And the listening and looking and attending is there, at least for moments at a time. We're not asking for anything. Listening is there if I want to hear something. What are the sounds right now? I have to be quiet in the first place, don't I? Not thrash about. Does one want to hear something? Listening does not need anything to be heard. It can take place when there's nothing to be heard, or something to be heard. It doesn't matter. It's a state of being which is open, receptive and non-judgmental, not wanting or fearing. You say, wait a minute, you jumped far ahead. What I notice in listening is that there's wanting and fearing. Then can one listen to that? Or is there immediately the judgment? Let's talk about judgment. What is judgment? Just listening. There needs to be no judgment. But does judgment come up? The sound is wonderful, or it disturbs my concentration. I wish it was quiet. I love it. Are these judgments? They do happen verbally, don't they? But they also have a whole physical disposition connected with them, of towards something or away from something. Heightened energy through a release of chemicals. If we judge something to be good for me, marvelous. If I judge it to be bad, then there's also a release of chemicals, which has a different effect. Seeing people, this is where most of our judgments arise, don't they? The example given was so simple. Seeing somebody and feeling he's not doing his work or she. What happens when we feel and say something like that about another person? He doesn't know what he's doing, or he's just disturbing me. He's greedy, or she's this way. She's so inconsiderate, so selfish. That's the sentences that come to mind when we see other people based on what we think we are observing, because very often the judgment so quickly clouds the observation that we're not even observing accurately. We're judging. Why? What is happening with this judgment? Is that boring? People bring it up all the time, it happens. When I judge other people, someone who is not working while I am really doing a good job, does this enhance my feeling about myself, judging someone else inferior to what I'm doing? Let's find out for ourselves whether judging others also does something to enhance the feeling of meanness, the value of my existence. Because implied in judging someone else is my ability to judge someone. That already gives me some kind of a boost. I'm able to say what he or she is like. We have to observe it as it happens. It may be too theoretical, although I'm really looking at what happens when we judge someone. Because we are the judge now. In the court, the judge sits high and he wears all kinds of robes, can bang his thing there. Amazing position the judges take. And they're just human beings, but you wouldn't think so when you see them throning there, because I've never seen directly, only in the movies. Or in Senate hearings, the judges all are and other people sitting below them. So does one feel some kind of elevation? Not just in what one says, but in the fact that one is capable of judging someone. It may become very intellectual, but the feelings are there if we observe them as judgment happens. And maybe in talking about it right now and listening openly, wondering about this, maybe one will discover this and see what a meager fare this is to feel good because I can judge someone else inferior. And yet we nourish ourselves with that. At times. And yet we judge almost all the time. And the other direction too. Judging everybody more intelligent, more clever, more capable, more successful than poor me who is always a failure. See the power of those mental actions on the feeling of what I am. And is that what I am, what my judgments of others affect inwardly? A good part of it, isn't it? It happens so quickly, so automatically. We went into it earlier. We've been judged from day one, probably before we were born. Mothers and fathers were already thinking what this baby would be like. And this one is a real active one. This one is a peaceful one. Do those judgments already communicate themselves to the growing fetus? It's how we think. But we're questioning whether it is inevitable, whether it has to be this way, whether it's human nature, or whether in seeing a judgment it can be seen and disappear, so that the seeing is cleared of the judgment. Not through any volitional action of my own, not through willpower, but the intelligence of seeing what judgment does, what it is used for, what it is dependent upon, what one is addicted to it for its effects. And we were always asked, since we were the smallest of children, how do you like this? We're asking each other that all the time. It's our way of conversing with each other. I'm not saying it's wrong, we should stop it. Become aware of it. This is what is important. And in expressing our likes and dislikes and what we think about something, the more sophisticated our judgment, the more sophisticated we feel we are. More important, maybe more powerful. Is that so? Am I off someplace? Can one look for oneself? Question this, observe it, because one is questioning it. And of course, but what arises is wondering whether it's possible to perceive at all without judgment. Because that's what we're always saying awareness is all about. A direct, wholesome perception which is free of judgment. Someone in a workshop recently asked, well, if I had no judgments at all, if I saw somebody in the street hitting someone, hitting a child, beating on the child, what would happen if I had no judgment of it? I think here is a big confusion. That if I had, it's all, of course, theoretically conceived, but if I had no judgment, then I wouldn't be able to see clearly what's happening and act rightly. And we're saying here rightly, not in contrast to wrongly, but right action which comes out of direct seeing. But if you see somebody beat a child, you see what's going on. You don't have to judge it. It's clear. It speaks for itself. Whether something can be done or not depends on the whole situation. One has to be in it to see what action will come up. Maybe no action. But to see the pain of the mother, of the child, one's feel one's own pain, that's also clear. Doesn't need extra judgment. To see insensitivity in a human being, It doesn't need to be judged, but it needs to be understood. What is it? How does it come about? And one needs to find out about that in oneself. How when one is all engaged in thought about oneself, one becomes very insensitive to things around one. People and live things around one then don't exist, one walks right over it. So it doesn't need to be judged, does it? It has to be discovered that this is what's going on. And when it is clear in oneself how preoccupation with my needs, wants, fears creates insensitivity toward things and people around me, then maybe one will also understand insensitivity in someone else, how it comes about. One sees it. The person is not there, is all absorbed in something. So, can wondering and looking and understanding take the place of judgment? Then things open up. And compassion begins to operate. Not intentional compassion, but compassion which comes out of understanding oneself and each other clearly, without judgment. The extra verdict, the extra condemnation. Things as they are speak for themselves if they're seen clearly. Actually, the direct seeing is the right action, whether it is accompanied by physical action or not. To say to the mother who is beating her child, or father, we don't want to single out mothers for beating their children. To say, what are you doing? Stop. Maybe she or he will stop. But what when he or she is alone with that child later on, after having been frustrated in something, impeded? How can we communicate with each other in a loving way, not in a directive way? Do this, don't do that. And yet the child may need to be saved. That will be clear from being present there in a situation. Can one save the child? Is the child endangered? And yet not out of a hateful attitude toward the parent. Because that parent very likely was a beaten up child himself, herself. I think we touched on something. How can one look with love? And not ask for a practice, for a technique to arouse love. But is there such a thing as looking lovingly upon each other and the hills? And not hating oneself for what comes up in oneself. Hatred coming up, not hating that, but looking at it. Vastly, largely, spaciously. Not knowing where it comes from at this moment, but wondering about it, letting it reveal itself. In a gentle, non-condemning way. Is that possible? We're asking it. We don't say, you're supposed to do that. we will end here for today.